We're here today to talk about solenoid valves and also a way to be able to cross them so you don't have a down situation with the machine. All valves are made to an ISO standard, being a DO3 size for the valve pattern, a DO5, or a DO8 size, which makes it easy to be able to cross a valve if you have a down machine situation. The two most common styles of electrical connections on solenoid valves are a box style where you wire in from the side with a cord grip, and you can wire both coils in the box, and the other is a DIN style where you wire individual connectors and screw them right onto the coils themselves. The best information that you can give for us to cross a valve for you is a clear picture of the name tag of the valve, which gives the full part number and the spool configuration, voltage, all the details, size of the valve, and everything you'll need to be able to cross that right away. And also a side picture of the valve isn't a bad thing to have. That way we kind of have an idea of the layout of the valve. On valves that you are trying to cross or get a replacement for, you don't have to go with the exact replacement to get your machine running again. You can go with another manufacturer because basically all valves function the same. Simple device, you put power to it to move the spool from one side to another, and with that, any valve, as long as it functions the same way, will work in your replacement. On a solenoid valve, you will see in the body of the casting, some will have just a P, some will have a PB on one side, and then a T on the other. What this means is that T represents this hole closest to the T is your tank side of the valve. This is your P side of the valve, pressure side, then A side and B side of the valve. Between valve manufacturers, the spool configurations can be identical, but they have the A and B coil drawn opposite side of each other. So you don't have to concern yourself with the way the spool is identifying it. You just have to make sure when you're mounting the valve, you mount with the T or the P side on the same side as the old valve was, and then you know you're mounting it correctly. When you pull off your old valves off a manifold and don't remember the orientation of how to put them back together, is an easy thing you can do. You can look at what would be considered your P and T lines in the side of the manifold, P and T, and look at which port is facing to the P and which side is facing to the T line, so that you know which side would be your tank or pressure line. With that, you'll know then your valve will mount in a certain direction because you match up with the P going to the P line and the T going to the T line. Now, if you have other devices in that stack and you don't remember how that goes, typically on the modular valves, the nameplate side is your P side. So you just make sure you mount everything up in the right direction with P all the way up on the side, and you're good. On a lot of valves, you will see a manual button on the side that you can fire the valve by with a screwdriver. So in case to verify if you have a bad valve or your coil is shot, you could actually fire the valve manually by pushing a small Allen key or screwdriver in here to make sure the function of the valve is still working properly. On some valves, depending on your valve and how old it is, you could have your 2 signal wires and 2 common wires. A lot of valves nowadays come with a jumper on the common wire, and if you don't need it, you can remove the common wire jumper and wire those common wires individually, or you could tie them together and leave the jumper on, depending on how you would like to do it. In hydraulics, heat is always going to be an issue because when you put fluid through a fixed orifice under pressure, you're going to generate heat. So what you want to look for if you have issues with heat from the machine is, where's the source of that heat? Is it in the valve stack? Is it on a hydraulic pump? Or is it in the cylinder on the machine? 9 times out of 10, if you have a heat source or heat generated from a certain area, you have a leakage issue from one side of a cylinder to another, which generates heat through a valve stack if a device isn't working properly. So you'll want to look And as far as preventive maintenance aspect, see where the heat's coming from and pinpoint it down to fix an issue or alleviate a problem from happening. Now, if you're trying to mount a crossed over valve and it's not mounting for you, make sure you're not trying to match up the spool configuration, because some manufacturers will flip the spool internally on the diagram and the valve is going to be 180. If you can't mount it, valve manufacturers for DO3 standards is a 0.5 millimeter off, and this prevents you from mounting the valve incorrectly. So if you can't get it mounted, try mounting it 180 degrees around and make sure your T lines up with your T side of the manifold and the P lines up with the P side of the manifold, and then you'll be able to mount it correctly. If you're still not getting anything working on the device, you're going to want to check also that you're getting fluid to that valve in that stack, that your pump is not the issue. So we have thousands of valves in stock that we are able to cross from your old valve. To get you out of a down situation, we can cross it, ship it the same day, and get it to you next day, and get your machine up and going again.